Okay, so getting back into our coverage over From the Ashes, A New Beginning, we do pick up with X-Men issue number 3. Now, this book alone is really explaining how in the world Cyclops was able to get his own base, because at the very beginning of this series, out of nowhere, we have a brand new team for Cyclops, but also we have a brand new base in Alaska, some kind of factory. And we had no idea how in the world Cyclops was able to receive that base. And so this book alone really explains how Cyclops was able to possess a factory for his base for his brand new X-Men team. And so as we get into the opening pages of today's video, we do pick up at the factory, the base that belongs to the X-Men. But we don't pick up with the X-Men. Instead, we pick up with the one organization being able to teleport inside the base thanks to a character called Vanisher. Now, when it comes to ONE, it stands for Office of National Emergency. This was a group put together by the American government right after House of M. And the reason why, because right after House of M, you have most of the mutants get depowered. And so for the president and the American government, they wanted intel on all the mutants that were left on the world, but especially in America. And so they had created the ONE organization. But right now it seems like they're being used for another purpose. Now, like I said, they were able to teleport inside the base thanks to a character called Vanisher. Now, Vanisher first appeared back in Uncanny X-Men issue number 2, all the way back in 1963. Man, old character. Now, for Vanisher, he is a mutant that has the ability to teleport. And honestly, he's kind of like Nightcrawler. He can teleport other people with him. Now, the only difference is that unlike Nightcrawler, Vanisher does not really need to touch you to be able to teleport. Instead, you just gotta be near him. But it seems like right now, he's helping out the ONE organization break into the base of the X-Men to look for something very important. Now, as we jump over to Cyclops, you also had his book building up to a crossover coming very soon with the other X-Men team that's being led by Rogue at the moment. And matter of fact, it's a crossover called The Assault on the Grey Malkin. And we might cover that crossover soon on the channel. Haven't decided yet. But either way, for Cyclops, he does get off the phone with Rogue, but apparently he's going in town to meet up with someone very important. Now, once you have Cyclops arrive in the city, he is then confronted by a bunch of ONE agents, but also Paula Robbins. Now, Paula Robbins does not work for the ONE organization at all. Matter of fact, she is a sheriff of a town that's nearby the factory the X-Men are currently living in. And so for Cyclops, he has been trying his best to build relations with the city people who live right next to the factory by working with Paula Robbins. Now for Paula, she's also trying her best as well to work with Cyclops. But now she's kind of wondering how much trouble the X-Men are going to bring. And the reason why, because you have all these ONE agents right now pointing their guns at Cyclops as he goes inside the diner to talk to someone who wants a meeting with Cyclops. And that'll be a character called Agent Lundqvist. Now, before we're able to learn what's going on with Lundqvist and also Scott Summers, we have to jump back over to the factory. And we pick up with Magneto having a conversation with a character known as Temper. Now, for Temper, she has been around for a good while now in Marvel Comics. But in the last couple of years, you had Marvel trying to do some new things with the character, hoping to have fans love the character a tad bit more. But for Temper, she hated Krakoa. And the reason why, because, well, she was exiled. She broke one of their laws, the whole idea of do not kill. And of course, she killed somebody. And so because of that, you had her be exiled. And she is the only person in the entire base who does not miss Krakoa at all. But before she's able to express her anger towards Magneto, you had Kid Omega say, hey guys, listen, I think we have some company that we need to take care of in this exact moment. But now we have to jump back over to Scott Summers and also Lundqvist. Now, when we do, we learn here why Lundqvist is mad with Scott Summers, because what happened in our last video. You see, you had the X-Men go over to San Francisco, and the reason why, because there was a mutant whose powers had manifested, and their main goal was to help out that mutant. And so the Lundqvist, he thought that once the government had gave the X-Men that factory, they were going to stay put. They were going to stay in Alaska, and that would be it. But you had Scott say, have you lost your mind? And the reason why he's saying that, because at the end of the Krakoa era, you had Scott Summers get put on trial. Now, while he was waiting for his actual trial date, they tortured the man. And that was all approved by the American government. And so once you have them realize, like, hey, what we're doing is wrong here, they try to pay Scott back the best they could. Like, for example, the factory. And so it's Scott saying, honestly, I deserve more because what you guys did to me was completely wrong. And only because I was a mutant. Now we have to jump back over to the rest of the X-Men, because you have the rest of the X-Men wondering why in the world the one organization is in their base right now at the moment. Now for Kid Omega, he believes that they are there for Ben. You see, in our last video, you had the X-Men go over to San Francisco to find that mutant. But when they had arrived, it was a full-on alien invasion in that city. Now, for our heroes, they were able to figure out the whole entire invasion was not real at all. It was actually created by that mutant who had the ability to warp reality. Now, for the X-Men, they had tricked the public into believing that young mutant had died by killing himself with his own powers. But in reality, you had the X-Men take that mutant back over to their base. And so for Kid Omega, he believes that the one organization must be there for Ben. But as we jump back over to Scott Summers and also Lundqvist, you have Lundqvist tell Scott, the reason why I am here because you were caught on cameras in San Francisco talking about the whole idea of mutants now coming into this world, but not in the usual way. You see, usually when it comes to a mutant, they get their powers from their X gene, and their powers activate when they are teenagers or possibly younger. But now you have mutants popping up who are not young at all. I am talking about grown men, grown women, just out of nowhere getting their mutant abilities and unfortunately not being able to control them. And so with Lundqvist, he wants answers on what is happening right now with the mutant race. But as we get back over to the factory, you have the X-Men being able to find all the different one agents. Now, while you have our heroes being able to take them all out, you have Kid Omega want to know why in the world they're in their base for. Now, for Psylocke, she was able to find out that they're not there for Ben nor Magneto. They are there for Cerebro instead. But I want to get back over to Scott Summers. And the reason why, because you have Scott you have Scott Summers tell off Lundqvist so easily. Because the Lundqvist, he says, listen, I don't want the X-Men involved with anything at all. Matter of fact, I want you guys to sit y'all butts in y'all base in Alaska and leave the rest of the world alone. Because right now, currently, for the government, they have their own mutant team. And once again, that would be X Factor. But for Scott Summers, he said, listen, I know my brother, Alex. There's no way that he'll be able to lead that team like you want him to. But on top of that, I'm going to tell you right now, you can't stop me. Have you seen my team? I have Psylocke, an assassin, Kid Omega, a powerful psychic. I have Magic, a demigod, Magneto. Like, my roster is deadly. And I'm telling you right now, if I was you, I would try to work with us instead of working against us. Now, you do have some of the agents of O.N.E being able to find, well, Cerebro. Now, their main goal is to completely wreck Cerebro, but they're then confronted by Temper. Now, you have Temper doing her best to not kill these guys off, but at the same time, it's her expressing how much she hates the O.N.E organization. But either way, she was able to protect Cerebro. And so you have the book really end on the note where you have Scott tell Lundqvist, hey, tell your bosses to leave me alone because if they don't, oh yeah, I will then use the X-Men as a way to fight against the American government. And honestly, I have my wife who's out there right now as the Phoenix who can come down and make things a whole lot worse for you guys. And also, you didn't have the X-Men appear behind Scott Summers and say, hey, listen, we had captured your guys because we realized that you were trying to get rid of Cerebro. But you have the book kind of end on the note where you have Scott Summers go to the bathroom of the diner. And we kind of find out that there's something wrong with Scott Summers. But the question is right now, what is wrong with him? But unfortunately, we're not going to get that answer here in this moment. But either way, this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next comic book video.